Turn me up just a little bit. Yeah, it's that man space vibe. Step in the zone, microphone check. Russ and Les got the real intellect. Talk smooth like jazz on a late night set. With a convo deep and the topics connect. From the struggles to the wins, they address it with grace. Drop lines so cool, you can feel the bass. Two kings of the craft, and you know the rest. Kick back, pour a drink, welcome to the space. You go chillin' with Russ and Les. You go chillin' with Russ and Les. You go chillin' with Russ and Les. Hang out, cause now you vibing with nothing but the best. Space forever.
Welcome in to another edition of the Manspace Podcast. Now, this is the voice of Russ, and with me, as always, he's not here. Manspace Nation, he is away getting ready for the Winter Olympics, trying to bring us home gold as he works on his figure skating routine. So, Manspace Nation, don't worry, I am not alone. I have a special guest that is joining me. He is a 20-year Air Force veteran, a bodybuilder, and a lead guitarist for his group, the Angelics. He's a self-proclaimed coffee connoisseur, a poet, and on a mission to revive epic storytelling for a new generation. At a young age, he survived a near-death experience to now creating the literary series called The Amazons and the graphic novel called Sigma Squad. His journeys blend service, strength, spirituality, and creativity in a way that's nothing but extraordinary. Manspace Nation, please put your hands together for my guest, Mr. Peter Gunn. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me, Russ. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So first, I got to ask you, your name, does it have to do anything with the classic TV show Peter Gunn? And
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay, I just didn't know if your family were fans of that show. You know, I was watching some old TV, and I actually happened to see an episode of it. And I was just kind of curious when I was like, I wonder if there was any association. I'm going to take these glasses off because they are fogging up like crazy and I can't see you. Okay, there we go.
No, it's a funny story about my name. When I was still serving, I was with the Thunderbirds. So it's just about, I want to say about 2004. And we were, of course, we did air shows with the Thunderbirds and, and we were in Atlantic City staying in a very expensive casino called the Borgata there in Atlantic City. Yeah. Very beautiful casino. And when I went to check in, for the night, they had lost my name off the list. So okay, sorry, sir, we don't have a room for you. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And the manager stepped in, saw this, like, well, he's with the air show. He's going to get a room. So then the manager goes in this cabinet that's, you don't really see, and he pulls out keys and says, here's a VIP suite. And I'm like, okay, wow, thanks, sir, and then, I went into this room. It was so big, it had its own echo. It was huge, and then with the VIP suite came, you were allowed to go in the VIP area and the gambling table. So I figured, why not? So I went down, played some blackjack, and then James Gandolfini came up and sat next to me.
Oh, wow.
The lead actor from the Sopranos. And, I was polite. I didn't bother. I'm sure the man just wanted to play blackjack, but there was a little bit of conversation. And I asked him, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently? And he said, change your name, kid. Change your name. So, because you have to protect your family. Yeah, protect your family. Yeah. And if you look at it, that poor man had a lot of problems with the paparazzi. They were constantly following him. Right. So I took it to heart. Yeah. So Peter Gunn was first my pen name and now my stage name. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about your literary journey and doing Sigma Squad and what type of inspiration did you have? Because I get into some graphic novels myself. I have over to my side over here. I'm reading through the Invincible series right now. And what type of things were like influences on you as far as graphic novels go?
Well, I've always been like, as far as artwork goes, I would say Ed
Hmm.
McGuinness from the '90s, Batman,
Yeah,
Superman. He was
yeah.
he was a big inspiration of mine, and also one of my inspirations to draw more because um, I want I and also an inspiration that I would say to get into bodybuilding because
Hmm.
I wanted to look like Superman that he drew. I wanted to look
Yeah,
like the Batman that he drew. And it
yeah.
inspired me to also get into bodybuilding. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Now, do you get to a chance to do any competitions as far as bodybuilding goes?
When I was younger, yes, I did.
Hmm.
It's funny because when I did civilian world and I competed in the civilian world, it was always like up against the guys on steroids. It's constantly
Yeah,
you
yeah.
your head against the wall. It's like, and I can't. I question like, okay, should I keep doing this? Because you
Right.
diet down so much and it's so much work and
Yeah.
stress in your life. You question whether you should do it or not. But then when you get in the military, it's like, oh, okay, now these odds are fair because I don't have to
Right.
compete against the steroids. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember I was in Toronto one time, and at the same time I was there, there was the World Bodybuilding Championships going on, and it was just all these just famous guys that anybody you could think of, you would see them, and you walk into a restaurant and they're walking in and they're bringing their own meals into the restaurant with them, and you see them with these big stacks of food, and it's all prepackaged and everything, and who's going to stop him and say, sir, you can't bring that from the outside into the restaurant? Like these big huge guys, nobody's going to stop them. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty entertaining though. um as far as, let's talk about the Amazons
Okay.
now. What was the mindset in creating this series?
Well, in 2010, when I had my daughter,
Mhm.
of course, every parent wants to enroll their children into things they like. So
Yeah.
I always love the classics like the Iliad, the Odyssey, Dante's
Hmm.
Inferno, Beowulf, you name it.
Yeah.
But then I started realizing, like, why would a young girl want to read these? Where are the
Right.
heroines? Where are
Hmm.
the females that she could look up to? And like they don't exist really at least in the
Yeah.
genre. So like, well, I should do something about it. So that's what first inspired me to do that, is because
Hmm.
it's almost like saying that the fact that it doesn't exist, it's almost like saying that, to our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, like the hero's journey isn't for you. So, you just go
Yeah.
stay in the kitchen in a way. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. It gets hard sometimes because I guess this is where representation is important, because when you don't have something that connects with you, then why follow it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Exactly.
I had the same thing with my daughter and trying to get her into some of the things, and I would always show her like the female comic books, whatever was out there, to try to get her interest into some of them. And of course, there was always the classic, the Wonder Womans and things like that, but there wasn't a whole lot out there,
No.
that she could really follow behind. So
Mhm.
wow, I applaud you for doing something. But let's go
And,
back to
and there's going to be more
your.
on the way
Yeah.
too. There's a series. It's going to be a trilogy. So I'm working on book
Okay.
number 2, and then book number 3 is, well, in here.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. So, when did this journey start for you as far as creating the books itself and drawing the comics?
Well, the book, as with any writer would tell you, always starts out in their heads. And I actually
Mhm.
will have. I practically had the entire book in my head for years, and I walked around and I
Mhm.
finally decided, what, I'm going to start putting this down on paper.
Yeah.
But I also, like looked at the classics, and I'm like, okay, they're written in poetic format, okay, but also then why are they so maligned? Why don't people read them more today? I started
Right.
investigating, so I started looking at Shakespeare, and
Mhm.
how many times do you have to have Shakespeare explained to you? Like, can people like, What did he say?
Right.
What was he saying?
Right.
You
What
know,
does he
and
mean by this?
the thing is, the threshold changes and the language changed. So I had
Mhm.
to come into this century and make something that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, not only could relate
Mhm.
to, can understand, okay, but something new that they can say that's theirs. That's why I created LLP and wrote the Amazons in the LLP format. It's close enough to rap that they will
Mhm.
understand it. I mean, how many young kids can memorize a rap song front to back like it's
Right.
nothing?
Right.
So it'll be familiar to them. I brought it into this current year, this current generation, and it's something new for them. They can say it's theirs.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, 7 years old, you experienced a near-death experience where you said an angel told you your job wasn't done. 7 years old, that's real, real heavy for a second grader at that time. How did
Yeah.
that moment shape you into the man that you became today?
Well, as with many indie years that will say, when they came back, they brought a lot of, so we say, uh, paranormal experiences with them. I knew it wasn't just a dream. I knew it was something that was life changing because I was starting to see spirits, both dark and light.
Mm, yeah.
I was starting to like see things happen before they happened. Just to give you an
Mm.
example, I mean, I'm from Wisconsin, and I saw my mother a day prior slip and fall and break her ankle on the ice, and then I told her
Oh,
about it. And
wow.
of course, then when it happened, she looked at me
Mhm.
like, and then there were other instances, and I actually started scaring my mother because
Yeah.
you want to go to your mother and your parents with these problems, and it scared my
Yeah.
mother, so I pulled back
Yeah.
and like, okay. I realized that I was on my own. I had to deal with this on my own. So it
Mm.
changed me. It made me grow up a lot faster. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the movie? There was a movie where that was happening to a young boy. And I just remember one scene, it always stuck with me. They were getting ready to go on a field trip and take a flight. And he starts freaking out because he saw the plane crash before it happened. And he's like panicking to the point where none of the kids in the class can get on the flight, and they're all just picking on him and picking on him and picking on him, and then all of a sudden you just see the plane just explode because the plane leaves without him. And it's like, instead of thanking them for not getting on the flight, they're chastising him even more. And that's the one scene I don't remember the name of this movie. So, Man Space Nation, if you guys remember, drop it in the comments and let us know if what the name of this movie is, because I remember seeing that part. I don't even remember how it ends, but I remember that part of the movie. Man, so with that, was it something that, like, your friends and people around you started to experience the same uh, moments with you, or was this something that only your family knew about?
It was something only my family knew about, and for the most part, my
Okay.
mother. I
Hmm.
didn't feel my father could handle it, and he just didn't want
Right.
to. And
Mm.
then, of course, my sister was busy doing her own thing. So, yeah, I just went through it on my own for the most part. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. So, 12 years old, you battled morbid obesity.
Mhm.
And on this show we talk a lot about discipline and trying to reclaim your life. Was the first battle something you realized that you could, forge yourself into something stronger? Was this just like hey, I this is something I need to do for me, or was there just that one moment that just said, okay, I need to make a change?
Well, yeah, there was a moment of frustration, where,
Hmm.
and I can remember it vividly. I remember um, just like, getting on the scale and then seeing that I hadn't really lost weight at that point, and I was just frustrated, and
Yeah.
that's when I decided, okay, I'm not going to listen to the doctors. I'm going to take matters into my own hands. And
Yeah.
I went to the library and started reading, the books with a layer of dust on them that are based in scientific fact, and not listen to what the doctors are telling me, not even bother looking at the magazines, that the bodybuilding magazines,
Yeah.
take advice from them, and then look what was based in
Hmm.
scientific fact. And I soon learned this is back in the 80s, that the
Yeah.
food pyramid needed to be turned upside down. And at what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they just announced
Yes.
that
Right.
it's supposed to be. It's when back in the 80s, I had to discover that for my own. And once I started eating that way, the weight started coming off. Yeah.
Mm, that's awesome. So I'm an Army guy, so I do have to ask you this question.
Okay.
What was harder for you, Air Force basic training or being 12 and turning down pizza?
They made my boot camp a lot harder than it was. It's one of those things where I went in disciplined because I had started bodybuilding at 16. So of course I started
Okay.
incorporating the lifestyle of the incremental diet, that I started seeing
Yeah.
the advantages of living your life like that. So I did
Mhm.
other things in my life like that. And I was very disciplined. I was in shape. So when I went to boot camp, the TIs took it, or training instructors, as we call them in the Air Force, took it as a slight. They were pissed off because they weren't breaking me. Okay. They were pissed
Right.
off. They weren't challenging me, and they took it as a slight. Like, okay, I need to put more in it. So there was a young man, I will never forget who he was, Trainee Manis, very smart
Mhm.
young man. Apparently he had, like Ace the ASFAB, very, very smart man. The Air Force needed him and his talents, but he was failing in the PT test. So I think he had failed twice. So one more time he was out of boot camp. So they gave
Mhm.
him to me and said, if he doesn't pass, you don't pass. And
Oh,
I just
wow.
freaked out. Like, number one, okay, isn't this your job? Why is it my job?
Yeah.
But
Right.
like,
Right.
it was a challenge that they put on me. Unfortunately, I didn't have to, but I took up on it. And, it comes to find out, after just talking to him, he didn't understand that you have to push through the pain when you're running. And then every morning would get up hours earlier than everybody else. I get him out on the track, and we eventually got him to pass his PT test. Yeah, so
Mhm.
they made it harder than it had to be, unfortunately. Yeah.
So after 20 years, how did the military help your creativity, or did it even have any type of influence at all? Did it help structure you become more artistic?
Well, I mean, everybody brings, with ever any author, brings people they've
Hmm.
worked with in their lives into the book, whether they're conscious, they
Right.
realize it, or they don't. And there's very
Mhm.
much like people like that I've worked with that are in those characters. So I'd say yes, very much so. Because there are a lot of talented people I work with in the military, and that influenced me. So I wanted to also bring it into the books as well in my writing. Yeah.
Mm, awesome. So we're going to take a short break, but I do want to play one of your songs, and I want you to set this one up for me. This one is "The Daughters of the Flame." So kind of tell me a little bit
Okay.
about this one before we play it.
Well, this was actually one of the first songs that we recorded, and I had gotten a very talented Romanian singer to sing it for us. It's going to be on the release of the Amazon's audiobook when we're finally finished with it, and it's going to have a soundtrack with it. So it was meant to simulate something that a society like the Amazons might come up with or sing if they actually existed.
Awesome. All right. Well, this is from the Angelics. This is "Daughters of the Flame."
The jungle whispers secrets in the night. Fans cloaked in warrior might. A choir of sparks leaps from their blades. Moonlit steel in the greenwood shade. On this tune we
are back with our special guest, Mr. Peter Gunn. So, right before the break, we were listening to Daughters of the Flames. Now, your group, the Angelics, who was the founder? You were the founder of the group, and how did the group come together?
Well, it's one of those things where if you had told me like a year ago that, hey, you're going to be in a band and you're going to put out an album, I would have laughed at you. Um, I went looking for the band when I got together with my good friend Andrea Giordani, very talented voice actress. She's helping me redo the audiobook. We hired, and I put a lot of money into this. We hired like 30 voice actors. We have all the sound
Yeah.
effects squared away. It's going to sound like a big Hollywood movie. Okay. So
No.
I also wanted to add to it, so that's when I went looking for a band. And that's when I came across Leo Sather on Upwork.com. And then he brought in Max and Ellis, the other two guys. And then we did 10 songs together where they were contracted help for me. And then they brought up the idea of continuing, bringing with an album, and that's what I came up with the name, the Angelics. It's sort of a tip of the hat to my angelic experience when my NDE. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Now, how long had you been playing prior to getting into with the band?
I'd say about 6 years. Yeah.
Really? That short? Really? Wow. And what led you to wanting to pick up the guitar?
Well, it's funny. I had planned it there again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk poorly about somebody that's not here to defend themselves. There was another member of the band that I won't say who I wasn't happy with. He was the guitarist, and I was not happy with what he was putting out. So I let him go. I fired him. Okay. And of course, the guys were all up in arms. So like, great, we're going to have to get it. And I said, no, I'm going to fill in. I'm going to do this. And when they
Wow.
saw what I was capable of, that's what it went from there. Yeah.
Wow. What did you have any like musical inspirations that led to your style or anything?
Well, as far as writing and my style goes, I've always been a fan of Whitesnake and David Coverdale.
Yeah.
They not only inspired my music, but my writing as well. If you look at the lyrics, they're poetry. They really are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much a storytelling, and you mentioned, in your bio trying to redefine storytelling. And so I think that's one of the things that a lot of good music these days is missing is storytelling. You don't get that a lot of times anymore. So it's just, oh yeah, you got a great beat or you got a nice hook, and the rest of it is like nobody knows what you're talking about, But
Sometimes you
this
don't
one,
want to listen to
it's
Trent,
story.
though. Sometimes you
Right.
want a story. Yeah.
Right. So LLP, linked lyrical poetry. Kind of break that down a little bit more. You mentioned that you created this. So explain this a little bit more to the Manspace Nation.
Basically, if you look at rap, of course, it's connected with the rhymes. Okay. And so I knew if I was going to do something similar to that, I needed to also bring flow into the writing. Now, I needed number one, I need to connect from sentence to sentence because you're writing paragraphs now. You're writing a book. Okay. This is a lot more than a rap song. So I needed to the two words that are closest to the period. So the end of the sentence, the beginning of the new sentence, you need to come as close as possible to rhyming those words. Okay. And this is where you're actually looking for, you got to keep the context, and you're looking for another word that rhymes. But then, okay, once you got that, then you're doing that in the entire paragraph. So you can sit there for an hour and get one paragraph down because you'll try to make that one paragraph rhyme as much as possible. So if there's an alternate word that will rhyme, you got to use it, but as long as keep it the context.
So it's the cross between Shakespeare and Kendrick Lamar. If they had like a creative baby.
Yeah.
Nice way to put that. Going into the Sigma Squad, kind of tell us a little bit about the Sigma Squad and what people can expect when they pick those books up.
Well, in 2020, During the whole COVID era. It was weird. I'm sure a lot of people will say, yeah, it was a weird time.
Yeah.
I like to think the best of humanity. I always do. I always
Mhm.
try to. And it just surprised me at how fast everyone was quick to just don a mask without questioning it.
Yeah.
And it bothered me. And then I looked around. I'm like, really, you don't you think this is a good idea? And it made me realize how much people still are asleep. And it made me think of how could I do something to help them wake up, because these are just common people though. So they're not necessarily going to listen to the hidden symbolism in my songs. They're not necessarily pick up the Amazons and understand it and read it. So I needed something to come down to their Joe Sixpack's level, which is, well,
Right.
graphic novel, comic books, and that's where the
Mhm.
best way I felt I could bring, sorry, say, a spark of knowledge into a good
Mhm.
story, and,
Yeah.
help them see what's going on behind the scenes,
Mhm.
in a more palatable format.
How much realism gets involved in this story?
I
Uh,
like to do what I call
yeah.
a Dan Brown, because Dan
Yeah.
Brown brings in science fiction and fact, and he mixes it, and
Mhm.
you're like wondering, okay, wait a minute, is this real or is this fake? And it makes you
Yeah.
go look, like you're wondering what's real and fake, especially like with the Da Vinci Code, Angels of Demons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much of yourself is actually in any of the characters?
Oh, myself is very much in there, but I also
Yeah.
try to differentiate, so I
Mhm.
this character to not be me, be unique in some way, yeah. So, but
Mhm.
there's, like I said before, every author is bringing themselves into every one of those characters, whether they're aware of it or not. They are.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I was last week. We had John Dudakis on the show, who has several different books out himself, and he was saying like one of the big inspirations is his main character for all of his books is this female, and one of his big inspirations was a woman that he was just having a conversation with, and she was just explaining some of the dramas that she was going through, and he started to learn from her, just her experiences, and starting to understand how women thought differently than men. So he started to write in this female style. Do you have a little bit of that when it comes to the Amazons?
Well, I served in the maintenance world in the U.S. Air Force, so I worked
Mhm.
on the electrical systems of fighter jets, and
Mhm.
there are some females in that world, and I will never forget one night. It was thunderstorming out, and it was raining real horribly, and there was a young lady that was pushing in her toolbox, and her face was covered in grease and dirt. She had obviously been
Yeah.
outside working all day, and she looked up at me and she said, I would have to work 3 times as hard to get the same amount of credit as the guys. And that just hurt me. That hurt me. And I
Wow.
felt that. And that's one of the reasons also why I wrote the Amazons, is for young ladies like that, because
Yeah.
they do have to push harder, especially if they're in a male
Mhm.
dominated field.
Right.
They're
Absolutely.
overpowered and outnumbered. Yeah. And they have to be on the
Mhm.
defensive all the time. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I applaud them for doing it, because
Yeah.
I think that's
Absolutely.
awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, light question to you here. The coffee connoisseur. Are we talking like Black Rifle coffee, or this is like the artesian style coffee that you're into?
Well, I like a light roast, because
Okay.
a lot of the manufacturers, especially the bigger ones, will
Yeah.
intentionally roast or should I say, overly roast the coffee beans to where not only it tastes bitter, but
Better.
it's
Yeah.
to then to allows them safe space to burn off impurities, so they could give you lower quality coffee.
Yeah.
It's sort of a cheat for the system. So I prefer like to
Mhm.
buy from a smaller manufacturer, mom and pop shop, and get
Yeah.
a lighter roast, because you can chase the caramel tones in the coffee.
Mhm.
It's yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Is there any specific shop that you like, or that you feel free to shout out on the show here?
Well, I like Death Wish coffee. And people
Okay.
say that people say that, oh my gosh, there's so much caffeine, but I guess I'm a caffeine addict then, but I like Death Wish coffee. Yeah.
Okay. So I for one, I was a big coffee guy, and I would get, gosh, I can't even think of the type of coffee, and we used to actually advertise it here on the show. It's sad now. I've stopped with caffeine, so I stopped probably back in November. Toward the end of November, I stopped doing caffeine, and initially it was a struggle, but
Of course, yes.
after a couple days, I felt fine and didn't feel the need for it anymore, because I was really bad when it came to like energy drinks and things like that. I was doing like 2, 3 energy drinks a day, and it wasn't for the fact of just trying to stay awake. I just liked the taste, and I
Yeah.
would just drink these energy drinks, and it just wasn't, wasn't good. So I just, like you, when you were, making the change into the bodybuilding and just feel like, okay, I needed to make a change. That's kind of where I felt back in November, like, okay, I need to make a change, and start somewhere, right? Everybody has to show some sort of discipline and start somewhere.
Oh yeah, and we all go through those moments in our lives, where we make a change. But I would say then, don't stop there. Keep going. Grow
Mhm.
with it. So if you're making a positive change in your life, where else can you change? Where else
Yeah.
can you grow as a person? Yeah.
Yeah. So you went and searched out the other musicians for the Angelics. So this was back, what, 2025? July
Yes.
2025 that you started. So how did you actually find them? Because these musicians, they were from Germany, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So how did you actually was this like a ad on Craigslist, or like how did you actually
No, no.
find them? Yeah.
Upwork.com. It's great for
Okay.
entrepreneurs or people that are
Ah.
writers that need somebody to do illustrations for their books. You could find artists
Mm-hmm.
there. So you could
Hmm.
also find musicians. And it's just one of those things where I saw Leo on there, gave him a chance, and he brought in the other guys, and we hit it off. For the most part, we're Christian-minded, conservative-minded guys. So we all
Yeah.
think the same, which makes it easier because we're not constantly fighting and bickering about how the directions of the song should go, really.
Mm. So what can we expect from the first album?
Well, from Hazing Hades to the first album,
Hmm.
we approached it with the mindset of, what if you went into your attic, into your basement, and found your old cassette collection from the 80s, your CDs.
Hmm.
And what if you had found one that you somehow missed, like you had never opened it before? Okay. What would it sound like? And that's what
Mm.
the premise we went with Hazing Hades is we wanted a whole slew of 15 songs that sounded like they came straight from the 80s. And the first
Mm.
3 songs, it go hard and it gets lighter, lighter, lighter. And like Divination at the last song is actually being sung right now in churches in the South. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. My collection from back then is actually over there in the corner. my nephew, he just every time he comes by, he's just so mesmerized by my wide range of music that I have over there. So he's just, it's just funny to me. So I leave it there just for him to sit there and look at. But in as a lead guitarist, what do you feel is sh- shaping the sound of music? Is it the guitar? Is it the drum? Is it a combination of all? What is the overall force behind the music?
Well, I think it's really the people behind it. Okay,
Hmm.
what's their agenda? Okay,
Right.
because the music will always be shaped towards that agenda. You know,
Hmm.
um, People can put out protest songs, but if
Right.
the media doesn't like that protest, it's never going to play it, so it's never going to get out there. It's
Right.
one of those things where you can tell who an artist is by the songs they're putting out. Whether or not
Hmm.
they're owned by the media, I promise you, our message will never
Mhm.
sort of say be played on big multimedia because it's too hard hitting, especially like with a
Yeah.
new album. Okay, that's
Mhm.
coming out Valentine's Day 2026. There's a song on there called "Bitch Do Better," and
Yeah.
it's utter truth to females that so we say act poorly. Okay, and
Mhm.
I guarantee you we're going to hear from some feminists and some female rights organizations. My lawyer said I was crazy for doing this.
Right.
He's like, you have a death wish, don't you? Like, yes, I
Yeah.
do, perhaps. Yeah, yeah. So we're expecting some pushback from that. Yeah.
How much do you feel now that you're just getting your first album out? How much do you feel that social media has changed the way music is distributed and helps artists these days?
Well, as long as you adhere to what they want, so you gotta be posting like twice a day, if,
Mhm.
all the time. There's so then you're going to be expected to hire a social media manager. It gets to the
Right.
point where it's daunting, and
Mhm.
and I've thought about it lots of times. And like we were actually talking about maybe doing a music video, like
Yeah.
shooting a music video, and I'd like to think that if your music or your book or whatever aspect, whatever you're doing, is good enough, the cream will rise to the
Mhm.
top.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time in history when there was only one copy of the Bible, but
Mhm.
eventually it grew. Okay, so
Right.
it might not be in your lifetime, but how many artists are appreciated a lot more after they're dead anyway? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, Now we've seen the influx of AI, especially into the musical space. It's something I use some sort of AI every single day. And how do you feel as an artist the influx of AI is changing things to you?
It's making life easier. Now, if you
Mhm.
listen on the first album, Hazy Hades, Heartbreak
Mhm.
Hit, okay, that's me singing it. Now, don't think I'm going to break down and be able to do a cappella anytime I want, okay? We
Right.
use AI to change my voice to make it more
Mhm.
palatable and sound better, okay?
Yeah.
But that was one of the things where um, once we finished the contract and the guys wanted to see what I was made of, like, because
Right.
there's a lot of time and dedication into putting a band together or actually putting an album. So they
Mhm.
told me two things. Number one, we need a 80s heartbreak song. And of
Yeah.
course, then they told me something that I was like, you got to be kidding me. They said they wanted me to put in the word sugar tits into it. And I had to,
Okay.
yes. So I was
Yeah.
like, you got to
Yeah.
be kidding me. But I made it work and I was really proud. They were surprised. They were surprised the way it came out. And it was good
Yeah.
enough to be on the album because they were expecting to throw it away. So
Wow.
it turned out rather well. Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, how much, as far as the writing process for a song, how heavily involved are you with the writing?
Well, there's a lot of my writing is channeled,
Mhm.
and it ever since my
Mhm.
NDE, it's been constant. Like I'll get what I call downloads. Just to give you an
Yeah.
example, like there was one night that I was really tired. I went to bed early, but all of a sudden,
Mhm.
bing, I got a download, so I knew exactly. Okay, I had to get up and start writing it down. Whether it's on my phone or on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
and because otherwise, it's like someone's bugging me in here, and I won't be
Right.
able to sleep
Right.
until it's not. So wrote it down. I'm like, and this was years prior. So I want to say this was 2021. Before I even
Mhm.
had an idea that I was going to be in a band or have a band. Okay, I had no,
Yeah.
and it was wrote down a song. I'm like, what in the world? I don't know why, but I keep everything on my phone, on my cloud. So like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. And then now that song is now the album coming on Valentine's Day, 2026,
Mhm.
called Jaded Girl, and
Mhm.
it's about women that are very hard hearted, and to help
Yeah.
and realize what they're doing. Yeah.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. Listen, we're running low on time. So, tell us, how can people find more about your books? Can people find your music, and just share like your social media handles for the Man Space Nation?
Well, you could go to my website. It's www.petergunn.net. Or you could go to your favorite music app or browser and just type in the Angelics with 2 L's, Angellics. And the names of our albums are Hazing Hades and soon to be released on Valentine's Day 2026. As our new album, Elysium Fields, Feels.
Awesome. 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 We have one last thing for you, and it's called The Last Word.
Okay.
And now, the last word.
The last word to you. So, if there is some aspiring young artist who's listening to this episode, what would you encourage them to keep going and do it?
Could you cut out for a second? Can you say that again?
Sure. And there's an aspiring young artist out there who's struggling to, writer's block, creativity. We all hit those moments where we just can't figure out what to do, or just burnout. What would you say to that artist to keep them motivated?
I would say look into meditation. Look into relaxing your body. I'm a firm believer in it. I do it every day. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the hands together, eyes closed thing. If you're
Right.
a Christian, then pray. If you're, it's practice some discipline, daily discipline that takes care of your mind, okay, and helps it to relax and be in your flow state. That's when I ask any artist, any creator that that's when they are at their best, is when they're in their flow state, because the words will just come, the notes would just come, and it will flow effortlessly. It's when you're in touch with your muses.
Awesome. Awesome. Peter, thank you so much for spending time with us. We're actually going to go to break, but we're going to play one more song, and I want you to set this one up for us. This song that we're going to go to break with, it is Strike from the Light. So set this one up for us.
Well, it's going to be for the Sigma Squad, and there again, when that's released, I like to give people more for their money. So when that's released, and the electronic version at least, you're going to have also a download of the songs with it, and it's about, shall we say, an angel that comes down, and then, shall we say, wages war with the deep state. So that's the premise of the book, and that's basic premise of the song, to help people realize what they're in store for with the book.
Awesome. All right. So this one is called Strike from the Light. We like to close the show with a little bit of inspiration. Manspace Nation, the word of the day is confidence. Confidence is not about being perfect. It's about believing in your ability to face whatever comes your way. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build up, step by step, through your actions, through your mindset, through your perseverance. You see, every time you step out of your comfort zone, you're strengthening your confidence. Every time you refuse to let fear hold you back, you're showing the world and yourself what you are capable of. Remember, confidence doesn't mean that you'll always succeed, but it does mean that you'll always try. And trying is how you grow, how you learn, and how you unlock your true potential. So trust in yourself, embrace the journey, and take that next step forward. Until next time, Manspace Nation, you got this. Keep showing your confidence. There it is. Confidence, Manspace Nation. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you do it with confidence, whether you're playing a musical instrument, stepping on stage for the first time to speak in front of a lot of people, whatever you do, do it with confidence and do it well, Manspace Nation. Listen, we want to thank our special guest today, Peter Gunn. Go out, check out his website, petergunn.net. Make sure you check out his music, check out the artwork, check out the books, check out everything about him and learn more, and follow him on social media and keep in touch. Also, Manspace Nation, you know what happens every Monday night. You can catch this episode and every episode of the Manspace Podcast 2 days early before it airs to the rest of the world on WTMSTV.com. And then on Thursdays on WTMS TV, it is Throwback Thursdays with back-to-back episodes of the Manspace Podcast. Now, this weekend, I will be live in Columbia, South Carolina. This will be on the 21st at the Powerful on Purpose Summit. So, hey, if you're down there in that area, come through, say hello. And on that note, since Les is not here, I have to do his line. We out of here.
No gimmicks, just game that my sure in sight. They shine like the city on a Friday night. Man talk, real talk, that's the way that you bless. Giving knowledge and some laughs in the same finesse. From life goes to the jokes that hit. They the tag team champs, yeah, legit with the wit. So pull up a chair, let the stress digest. From the beat drops, you know the rest. You go chillin' with Russ.